So the research that has been done now confirms that actually connecting with people's hopes and dreams and helping them to create their ideal self is actually a key foundation before any coaching is actually done. And that includes for me, the reality of I put purpose right at the forefront of all of this. I think, being really clear about what is it that's going to drive each individual franchise partner. And having a clear sense of purpose, clearly defined, clearly articulated, is something that really is impactful when it comes to dealing with the challenges that they're going to be dealing with in terms of launching and growing, a successful franchise. But the other part of that is having a really clear picture of what their hopes and dreams are. What is driving them and what will drive them, particularly when the chips are down, particularly when the challenges are coming at them right, left and centre. And particularly when you've got franchise partners who this is the first time, perhaps, that they've run a business, perhaps. So
would you have documentation that you could point back to them to and say, you asked me to be what we call your uncomfortable friend. This is where you said you wanted to go with it. Yeah. It sounds to me like there has to be some evidence of what you've said in terms of where you're trying to get to.
Yeah, for sure, and that includes for me, the perfect exit strategy as well. So actually thinking right at the beginning about what a potential exit could look like. Even although we all know that in 5-10 years' time, life will change and things will move on. But even starting with that, I think, is hugely important. And you mentioned the term the uncomfortable friend, which is certainly something that I discovered myself after genuinely hitting my head against a brick wall for so many times. And that question is is one that I've asked every single franchise partner that I've had the pleasure and privilege of supporting over the last 20 years is, are you comfortable for me to become your uncomfortable friend? And I ask that question at the beginning of every relationship. And without exception, nobody has ever said no to me. The beauty of it is that when you need to have an uncomfortable conversation, I refer them back to the fact that, do you remember the time? And I say it whenever I had the conversation, I said, when we need to have it, you'll remember this conversation. And they do.
So perhaps it's not even just the right strategy, it's also the conversations about the strategy, because you are going to go off the path and you have to go off the path to know where the path is. And then when you go off the path, you need to have people who have your back and can say, look, this is what we agreed at the outset. This is where you're trying to get to.
100%. And the difficulty for a lot of people is that the vast majority of people, and I was in this camp as well, when things go wrong, most of us are hardwired to actually, if we're using coaching, again, there's a whole conversation that we could have around coaching and what is coaching and what is it not. When you are using a coaching approach, most of us actually deviate towards coaching for performance. And that coaching for performance is, again, the research now physically shows what happens in our brains when we coach for performance in isolation. And that typically creates what the researchers have defined as a negative emotional attractor. Conversely, when we talk about hopes and dreams and we are focused on those aspects of coaching, that triggers what the researchers define as a positive emotional attractor. So the opposite. But a negative emotional attractor means that people in that position, quite often they close down, they feel threatened, they feel criticised. There is physical activity in our brains that actually take us to a place which often it's fight or flight. And I can think of countless conversations that I've had with franchise partners who are fighting. because
Yeah, I can.
because they don't understand what is happening to them and they can't quite equate it. So the only explanation they can give is it must be the model and it must be the franchisor. And it definitely can't be me because I've been successful in my whole career. So strategy is crucial. There's no doubt about it. But to your point, Rob, so are these other things. And all too often as franchisors, we are not well equipped to deal with the complexity of what these interdependent relationships actually need.
What's the one thing that people, anyone watching, might want to take away regarding strategy?
I think first and foremost, this is a double-edged coin for me. So everything that I talk about, even if I talk about franchise partners or franchisors, actually it applies to both. So
It's two
first
sides
and
of the same
foremost,
coin.
yeah, the first and foremost, and as I say, when something's not going well, my first reaction is, what am I doing that is either not helping, or what am I not doing that isn't helping? So when things are not going well, I've learned over the years to look to me. But in relation to strategy, the franchisor needs to have a really clear strategic plan. The first time that we introduced that within the first franchise that I was involved with, it was transformational. For the first time, we stopped, going all over the place and actually having clarity about where we were going, clear sense of purpose, clear vision, clear mission, clear values, all of that. But at the same time, the franchise partner needs to have a clearly defined strategic plan. This is an interdependent relationship. And so the same things apply, even thinking about exit right from the beginning and recognizing that yes, things may change, but ultimately having thought about it, the way that you build your business will be different it'll be different depending on what you actually want to achieve. Simply put, if you want a lifestyle business that actually you don't want to scale and you just want freedom of and flexibility of time, that's fine as long as that's aligned with the franchisor strategy. And all too often, it's not.
If the franchisor is expecting you to maximize the opportunity on a particular territory and you're trying to run a lifestyle business, then that's not compatible.
100%. And again, when a franchisor's success, which should be linked to the success of their franchise partners, not from what they sell the franchise, again, sell the franchise. In my language, it should never be sold. It should only ever be awarded. But getting all of these expectations aligned at the beginning and having really detailed conversations and commitments, that's the key around strategy. And all too often what I see, and we were guilty of it ourselves, we learned this stuff. I learned this stuff over years. What I would like people to take away is there is a way to accelerate and cut through all of this and avoid making the mistakes in the first place. There's a way to get this right, and that's what franchology is here for.